While he was still first consul, Napoleon had thought of having made, either in his room or in the neighboring salon, a bookcase composed of 16 divisions, 66 feet in length, and capable of holding 10,000 volumes. The catalog of the books in the private study recently published does not seem to amount to so considerable a number, but the books enumerated could not in any case have been contained in the four bookcases which we see represented. There were books also in the back study, books in the cabinet of the keeper of the portfolio along the side of the bedroom, and books also in the little apartment opposite the fireplace. A long closet with glass doors, breast high, with a marble top, contained boxes for papers and carried the volumes to be consulted and the documents in use. No doubt also the equestrian statuette of Frederic II, which the emperor constantly had under his eyes. This statuette was the only work of art which he ever personally desired to have. In the recess of the window was the table of the private secretary. The room was furnished with a few chairs. At night, to light his bureau, Napoleon used a candlestick with two branches, with a great shade of sheet iron of the ordinary kind. The study led into the back study, which was furnished with a few chairs covered with green morocco and a secretary with a cylindrical lid, adorned with ornaments of bronze, gilt, and veneered with a marqueterie of rosewood representing instruments of music. The decoration of this room recalled its former use as a boudoir. All the subjects painted in it alluded to the female occupations over which, from the ceiling, presided the Queen Maria Theresa under the guise of Minerva. All along the walls ran a dwarf bookcase. It was in this room that the emperor generally received his ministers, and that he granted audience before the levee during the day and in the evening. It cannot be too often repeated that a stranger never entered the study. We ought to have very accurate information on the decoration of this study, of which four pictures at least profess to give the appearance in many respects. Those of Gerard, David, and Vigneron agree, but that by Gamier, which Meneval says was made from nature and which is engraved in the work of Landon, baffles one completely. In it, we see busts placed in front of bookcases, statues standing at the end of the room, divided by columns into two unequal parts, bas-reliefs, the whole a combination of magnificence appropriate to a study arranged for display and not to a study for real work. Meneval states that he had seen this picture again at the house of the Comte Lemerrois, who came across it by chance and bought it. Now at the sale of the Comte Lemerrois, there was a portrait of Napoleon by Gamier, exactly of the same general idea as in the picture engraved by Landon, but without any accessories and showing nothing of the study. Either Meneval had not seen again, in spite of what he says, the portrait bought by Monsieur Lemerrois, or his memory deceived him. But in any case, the study which Gamier represented, and which may be seen in the engraving in Landon, is not that of the Tuileries. Such as the study at the Tuileries was under the Empire, such it remained under Restoration, and all the descriptions which exist of it agree. The furniture, as we have seen, was bare. As to the decoration, it was just as it was in the time of Maria Theresa. In the panels, fortunately 3/4 hidden by the bookcases, were 7 landscapes of Francisque Millet in the style of Poussin, landscapes of disproportionate height and very indifferent, which have turned so dark that nothing is to be made out of them. The other paintings, somewhat less dark, were by Nocraig. The painting of the chimney piece, entirely mythological. The subject was Minerva, to whom Mercury presented different women who rendered her homage. Minerva was Maria Theresa. On the ceiling, Minerva again, crowned by glory and surrounded by the genii of the arts in the pendentives between Millet's landscapes, allegorical medallions, sweetness, fidelity, candor, faith, sculpture, and architecture. One must be as indifferent to surrounding objects as the emperor to pass one's life in such a sumptuous and depressing abode, and not to experience a morbid desire to alter its appearance. In the topographic study which adjoined there was no luxury, nothing but great tables and pigeonholes in which the maps were arranged in perfect order. The room was very low, for after he had asked for argon lamps to light up the range of pigeonholes, the director of the office had to beg for smoke consumers to protect the ceiling from the great heat of the lamps. There were 2 little rooms besides one, occupied day and night by the keeper of the portfolio, had pictures by Noel Coipel on a ceiling by the same painter representing auroras surrounded by loves. The other, the antechamber with the cabinet at 4, the servants of the wardrobe, open with a wicket gate guarded by an usher of the cabinet on the corridors to Tuileries, and by another door into the back cabinet. The keeper of the portfolio on duty wore a coat, waistcoat, and knee breeches, a black kerseymere with 34 frocks on the coat. The usher was in the same costume as his colleague at the Appartement d'Honneur. Such was the theater, and such were the actors. The principal companion of Napoleon was the private secretary called Secretary of the Portfolio. In 1806, the post was filled by Bourrienne up to 1802, by Meneval from 802 to 1813, by Fane from 1813 to 1814. Fane had served his apprenticeship under Meneval and supplied his place when retired after 1806. These 3 men were the most advanced in the confidence and intimacy of Napoleon. It was not without grief that he parted company with Bourrienne, and up to the end treated him with a gentleness which is surprising. Meneval, much less acute, much less intelligent than Bourrienne, possibly somewhat simple, but of a very exceptional assiduity, of absolute probity, and of well-tried discretion, was a servant who suited him. He possessed the gift of real and constant presence. With a salary of 24,000 francs, the position and appointments of the masters of requests, the title baron, and an annual allowance of 30,000 francs, he was a person unknown to the court so completely that in 1813 many of the chamberlains did not know him. He passed his whole life between the private apartments, the secret apartment, and the 4 rooms which he inhabited at the Tuileries, on the dark corridor by the side of Constant, on the servant's story. For him, there was no going to the theater, no leave of absence, no holidays, no acquaintances. It was the life of a cloister. Fane, who from the month of February 1806 had the title of Secretaire Archiviste, was accustomed to this kind of life when he was called on to fill Meneval's place in 1813. His power of mind was superior to that of his colleague, and his books show it. They are at the same time rigorously honest, perfectly truthful, and scrupulously accurate. Fane, who received a pension from the Emperor in August 1808, received 18,000 francs on a year. On the list, an allowance of 20,000 francs was attached to his title baron, and he received, besides gratuities and considerable sums on different occasions, 18,000 francs in August 1808, 100,000 francs in June 27th, 1813, 50,000 francs in April 1814, etc. Meneval and Fane, to whom no doubt must be added a clerk of the archives of the name of Barry at the salary of 6,000 francs a year, actually formed the whole staff of the cabinet. Meneval had as servants of the office the keepers of the portfolio, Landois and Ongel, who, armed with sabers, the pattern of which the emperor himself had fixed on, accompanied him on campaign, taking duty by turns. They received a salary of 4,800 francs and numerous gratuities of 2,000 to 6,000 francs. They, too, were held in the most intimate, complete confidence, having been in the service ever since the consulate. At least, Fane had a clerk at 1,500 francs named Ribert, a supernumerary.